We are live on both.
We are going?
Yep.
Hey, good to see you. I'm Chris Bryant, Senior Pastor here at Ringgold United Methodist. We are your online church. We're grateful that you're joining us here. This is continuing the sermon. This is something that we started at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic that started, and it's one of the things we've kind of been thinking about doing anyway. And so we took a break for a couple weeks. We're getting back into it. This is Reverend Bobley Fleck. This is our Director of Connections and Communications. And he's preached the last couple weeks on the heart of the gospel being the heart of God. And so we want to continue the sermon with him today. So we're in a reverse role. Yeah. But before we do that, I thought maybe we could just spend a moment. This is the balcony in our sanctuary. And there's all sorts of equipment up here for the transition. Just share some about how that's been going. And what have we been doing?
Yeah, we've been busy. I think my job has dramatically shifted
with regard to what communications means. How does it mean to connect? Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it hadn't slowed down at all. But it's shifted in a lot of ways with pre-recorded and that sort of thing. Over the last couple of weeks, we have actually doubled down on our efforts to make live streaming happen. And believe it or not, this is actually like our first real live stream experience using our equipment, going through our switchers and all that kind of stuff in our sound system and all that sort of stuff in the sanctuary. So you guys are participating in something kind of a little bit historic for us as a church, I think.
That's right. So we debuted a live stream experience on Holy Week for Monday, Thursday, and then Good Friday. And for the folks that experienced that, they probably didn't notice what we noticed, but we learned a number of lessons. The most important lesson was we weren't ready,
Yes. Okay.
and we needed more equipment, a little bit better equipment. And it looks cleaner up here. The tech area looks a lot cleaner, a lot more minimal. Everything's been upgraded to better quality. I see not one, not two, but now 3 cameras that we're going to be able to use in different capacities. We're going to learn. We're just at the beginning of the learning process, how best to utilize them to make the online experience as high quality as possible. And so now we'll be doing things not just in worship design, talking about what happens in the moment, but also what the online experience is for folks that are visiting online, but also for people just like yourself that maybe aren't quite ready to come back to in-person worship, want to wait a few weeks, or maybe you're just out of town. You're out of town, you're visiting. You know what? I don't want you to tune in to First Church down the road or wherever it might be. I want you to tune into your church. And so I'm excited about us doing this.
Yeah, I was actually talking to someone yesterday, and he said he was going out of town this weekend, heading to the beach, and so I was like, hey, where are you going? Sounds like fun. He told me, and I went, you know what you got to do Sunday morning?
You got one of these?
Yeah.
That's all you need right here. Got one of these? Boom.
And he knew exactly what I was talking about because he knows what we've been doing and the time we've been putting into it. So he was like, absolutely, I'll check it out online. Yeah, I did. I misspoke a little bit about that. Yes, we have done live streaming before, but not with the level of equipment we have. And I'd love to at some point. We didn't have this when we did the Holy Week streaming. We've got an entire production room now that we took a room in the sanctuary up here in the balcony, and you probably wondered what that room was for. Historically, that was actually a bridal suite, which is, a bridal room, closet.
Right.
It's very, very small space, but it worked for a time.
Until the first bride fell down the stairs and broke her leg,
yes.
And it was no longer the bridal room anymore.
And then our trustees actually cut a hole in that wall, and that became our sound booth for a period of time. Again, both this is way before us.
Either one of us.
And then it's just been a storage room, a catch-all junk kind of random place.
Now it's going to be our online production room. So where we have multiple cameras again, and somebody's going to be back there directing the camera angles. And you think, gosh, why is that important? That seems kind of snooty, huh? Well, actually, you might think that until you are responsible for it, and then you realize that people tune out really quickly if all they do is if they have one view and they're not moving.
Yeah. No, exactly. I would challenge you to sit still looking at the same place.
At the same place, yeah.
Literally for 5 minutes.
Yeah, not look away. Don't look at a different angle. Don't look.
Yeah, you can't move your eyes. So what the camera is going to be doing for us
is turning our head. Exactly. It's turning the virtual head, so that because that's what you do in person, right? You don't just keep looking at the same spot. You kind of look around And so, yeah.
It's kind of cool. I do want to say this. I'm kind of monitoring us live on Facebook. So as we're talking, or if you got anything you want to say, I'd love to. We want to continue the sermon with you. So feel free to drop us comments or questions you may have about what we've been talking about, and then really about the sermons the last 2 weeks too.
So I want to jump in with that to say, first of all, not only, again, thank you, Bobby, for preaching, but for something I said at staff meeting today. Thank you for preaching 2 great Wesleyan messages. So what I mean by that is Wesley is John Wesley. We're a Methodist church. Our theology is called Wesleyan theology. Does it matter? Well, yeah, it does. We're not trying to put anybody else down, but it is who we are. It's who I've certainly chosen to be. I think it's the best representation of the gospel. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just listening to those sermons, go back, catch them. They're online, ringgoldumc.tv. Those are good Wesleyan theological sermons. Help somebody that didn't understand anything I just say. How would you rephrase that?
Yeah, I think at least what I try to talk about in the message, both messages, is I think there's a lot of ands in the Wesleyan theology.
Yeah, we are a both and theology.
And we really, it's been called the middle ground or the via media in some circles. And another way to say that is we do a really good job, or we try to do a really good job of holding things in tension.
Yeah.
So, faith and reason are 2 of those things that we constantly...
Right. The Spirit and education. Faith and faith alone, and the necessary role of good works. Tying those things together where others tend to do a better job of emphasizing either or. Wesleyans really try to hold those intentions.
And I think if you were paying attention, looking into it, I took 2 scriptures, and I feel like God led me to do this. But 2 scriptures. One of them, the first week, was a very typical faith alone kind of sermon, right?
Right?
For God so loved the world that He gave His only Son. Whoever believes in Him, right? That's faith, right? And then this past week, I talked a lot about what James says about faith without works is dead.
Right.
Which for some people, that is a very social gospel, social justice heavy kind of scripture. And my point is that it really is both.
Yeah, our answer, right? As Methodists, we would say yes. Say, well, which one do you emphasize first, or which comes first? And in a Wesleyan model, or as a Methodist model, we say yes. Yes, they're both. Yes. Because it's happening at the same time. It's the work of the Spirit. It's the work of Christ on the cross, of course, but it's the work of the Spirit today that continues that work in our own lives and through our lives. It's the Wesleyan distinctive.
It is, and it's the heart of the gospel moving inside of us, changing us, transforming us, and then helping us to be transformed into the world and transforming the world.
Right. It is part of our own personal transformation is to become transforming agents.
Right.
And so the thing about that is it's a good way, a Wesleyan question might be, look, if you're not part, if part of your salvation story or if part of your transformation isn't that have been moved to be part of a transforming force of the world, then you have to begin to wonder, wait a minute, what are you sure the transformation you're talking about is the transforming gospel?
Right.
Because these are one and the same. I mean, right? Or another way, one of the phrases that I use often to try to explain that is God wants to save the whole world, including you, and then include you in the saving of the whole world, right? I mean, those are the same message. They go hand in hand. They cannot be separated. The 2 sides of the same coin. Well, we sure did enjoy watching you first out at the creek.
Yep.
That was, if you'll pardon the fun, refreshing.
Yes.
And and getting away a little bit from this beautiful sanctuary here into maybe a different kind of sanctuary, both orchestrated by God in different ways. And then on the mountaintop, and I sure did like the cutouts during the sermon overlooking Ringgold.
Yeah.
And seeing in the center of the picture, there's Ringgold United Methodist Church.
I tried to zoom in where you could see the church from my vantage
from
point.
From the mountain.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting play, I think, on perspective. We were very subtly, seeing different perspectives, and that's what your sermon was talking. You were asking us to think about the heart of the gospel from a different perspective. First week, obviously, the inner life. This week, the outer life.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, kind of in a subtle way. Again, I had this hope that I'd be able to. It's easy to record by the creek, and so like I can figure that out, and maybe I'll get a chance to do this on the mountain the next week. And I had a drone for a while, and so I had some of those drone shots, which I actually didn't use, but I figured I could incorporate some of that. But I called up a member of our church, and the Hendrickses, George and Jan. I hope you're watching, and I just want to say thank you for letting me enjoy your beautiful view for a minute there. Really cool. That's their back porch.
Yeah, it's amazing. It was beautiful.
So got to overlook really out into the valley from that perspective. My point, kind of that first week was, I mean, there's transformation for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. That's what God requires for all of us, and that's really good news if you're down in the valley.
Yep.
In the ditches of life and feeling desperate, and it's some kind of maybe a little bit difficult news if you're in the high place.
Right. Yeah.
And you realize that, man, I really do have a lot, and a simple kind of thing. George and Jan shared that with me in that sense. And I get to share that with you guys, and you got to see, from the mountain looking down.
Well, I love that kind of the idea of, oftentimes I'll just speak for me.
I got to turn you up a little bit. Susan said she couldn't hear.
Oh, okay. Turn me up?
No, my mic, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm the loud mouth here. But, it's from a perspective of, we can get caught up, or I can get caught up, right, in thinking the mission, be a little short-sighted.
Yeah.
Like short-sighted, and so the focus can be on Ringgold Methodist Church, but from a different perspective, Ringgold Methodist Church is still in there, but you have a bigger understanding of actually, no, this is the mission, right? This is the mission. Yeah, we're a part of it, but look at the mission, and that's so important for us to, and we don't realize. I mean, it gets back to Jesus talking about losing our life to find it. Sometimes in our most exhausted state, our tendencies to pull back and pull inwardly, when really what brings us refreshment and renewal is outward thinking, is dying and letting go and embracing a bigger vision of how I'm called to be part of the transformation of the world. You gave us some good examples. Why don't you cover some of those examples again?
Yeah, like specifics about how we do that here and in my own life. Yeah, I think for us as a church, we try to take that seriously. I've always appreciated that about Ringgold United Methodist as I first came in, and it's something that we're known for in the community, and a lot of people call us like the tornado church because of the response of our people. And what's really interesting when I go out and people say that to me, I wasn't here when that happened, and so I quickly turn that and go, hey, that's, thank God for the people in our church and responding in that. And I can't really even take that credit, and ultimately I hope that credit goes back to God. But that's how we respond in simple kinds of ways like that. Those are external, kind of into the community. This past week or two, we've responded in a number of ways to people who needed very practical assistance. I just needed help with rent or different things in their lives that are going on that really couldn't control, or, we're kind of a resource to connect them in the right spot. And I think about that. I approach that, and I know the people that I get to work with in that approach that as really, it's a justice work, right? We've been blessed in many ways with many things, and in some ways we're up on that mountain a little bit because of the perspective. And so what we need to do is help bring others up into that as well, and really kind of lower ourselves and get us all on the same playing ground together. That's how it works for us as a church. I shared some like personal examples as a dad too. I mean, there's some,
right.
I feel like a police officer sometimes at my house, and shout out to all of our law enforcement officers who are working so hard out there and giving. So selflessly of their time and all of what they do. I feel like that sometimes playing zone defense with my three, my triplets. And life's not fair is a constant daily kind of thing that we deal. And my job as a dad is to try to help them understand that. Not always easy. I'm not saying I succeed very well, but right. It's a constant kind of thing. But I think in simple and practical and basic kinds of ways, we need to work towards that with everything that we do.
Yeah, you mentioned listening.
Yep.
That sometimes what we're called to do is listening, and listen to the voices that otherwise wouldn't be heard.
Yeah.
And you named a number of
there
groups there.
There are plenty. Something that changed my perspective dramatically when I was working on my bachelor's degree is a book called Voices from the Margin. I don't think we've ever even talked about that, but very, very challenging book about Christians all over the world in different perspectives who are writing from their particular voice in their particular margin. And the point is that you need to make more margin in your life to hear those voices, and they are coming from the margin in that sense.
Right.
But there's all kinds of people that are really not being listened to. Part of what we've gone through as a country, or what we're continuing to go through, is that. I think if our first reaction to anything is anger, that's a really good indication that we need
Slow
to
down
be
a little
quiet
bit. Yeah.
and just listen.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I'm not saying that anger is the sinful thing.
No,
and
no.
the Bible even addresses that.
Sure.
That, like, be angry but don't sin.
Right.
Because really, you're angry. It's a misplaced kind of thing.
Right.
And so we need to.
It's a secondary emotion.
Yeah. We need to try to bookend that, or sort of wall that up for a minute and create some space and time to hear.
Sure.
And that works hard.
It is hard. Because
what I've got to do, especially for me and my perspective and my privilege, is I got to be quiet. I have a hard time with that personally. That's part of my personality. But then even bigger than that, I was raised in a way that, I know what I know, and I don't know a lot of things and a lot of perspectives. And really the best thing I can do is listen and ask good questions and try to hear somebody.
Yeah.
It's
That's
a challenge.
Good stuff. As you check the comments to see if there's any questions that we might want to address, I'll go ahead and do a qualification. So next time you see Bobby and I, you'll see us in a mask, and as we greet folks for worship and that sort of thing. And the staff and I, we've been working in close proximity, and I mean that in a literal sense. We've all been in isolation for quite a while now. We started getting back together, so we shared some space over time. But we even talked about, Jay and staff, that as we start to get with other people, we may have to, we're social distancing in staff meetings, but we talked about how pretty soon, as we get exposed to, we're not isolating as much anymore. We're gonna need to probably we may need to start wearing masks in even staff meetings, and of course with committee meetings, even as we get back to the building. It's just trying to be safe, that sort of thing. So, all right, any comments or questions that we need to address?
I am not seeing any. You guys got any questions? Just drop it right in there for us. I'm not seeing any other than those comments that I couldn't. There's some general comments about thank you and we're here watching and that kind of good stuff.
Oh, sure. We deeply appreciate.
We've got 8 folks watching right now in this minute.
That's great. So we'll check the comments and questions out too later. We'll go back and visit the post just in case. Thank you to everybody that checked us out. We're really excited about worship, and for two reasons. We're excited about folks that are ready to come back, and we're going to have the directional signage in place. You're going to hear more about that next week as we really get set. We're practicing as a staff team this week with the live streaming, but we're excited about that. But we're also excited about folks that aren't ready to come back, want to take more time for their own reasons, because they're physically a part of the group that are most susceptible. You know what? I'm excited that we continue to ready ourselves to meet you where you are, to continue to meet you in your living room or on your phone, whether it's here in Ringgold or it's in Florida or Texas. And we're excited to continue to be in mission and ministry with folks that have kind of adopted us as their church family in other states. We're praying for people in other states. We've had people from other states in our membership class, which is not to, and I don't want to overblow this. It's not like there's a bazillion people out there, but welcome, to each and every soul that has found, during this time of wilderness, the bread of life to feed their hungry soul. Welcome. It's our pleasure to be among your extended church family and to feed you online. We're going to keep doing it. So.
No, I love how we've been able to serve in this time, and I think I think in that privilege that we've had, we've been able to use that and really spread the gospel and
Right.
reach people that may not have been reached otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a different time, regardless. Even before this, and we've talked about this a lot, but people checking us out online and participating online, that's a normal kind of thing that most church folks don't quite realize how normal that is. But we've got to keep working on that and keep doing that even more.
That's
as
right.
we go forward. And I'm grateful for what we've been able to do, and I love the support from our church to be able to make that happen.
Incredibly kind, patient, generous church.
Yeah.
And I mean that. Kind, patient, generous. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be your staff.
Absolutely. You're starting a new sermon series?
Yeah, finding direction, because this isn't over.
Mm-hmm.
It's not over. As a matter of fact, without getting into it, the details, we're still facing a lot of things, and we need to find direction. How do you find direction when you're not at the starting point and you're not at the end point? In fact, you're not even sure when the end may come. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to for the next 2 weeks. And this week, I want to talk to you about waiting for suddenly. My favorite word in the Bible is suddenly. It's one of my favorites, right? It's how do you pick? But I love that in the scripture when you read, suddenly. Mm-hmm. We're waiting for suddenly. We're in the waiting. And what does that look like? And I think God is there. And the passage that we picked, or that I picked, I think is going to break anew for us. And I'm looking forward to sharing that message with you.
Yeah. We're going to keep doing online stuff and keep coming to you in different kinds of ways. Father's Day is this Sunday, so
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of special things with that and moving forward. Be looking for plans about what reopening looks like.
Yep.
Keep reaching out to us, and we'll keep reaching out to you in this time, and keep being the church in unique and creative, different kinds of ways.
That's right.
Yeah. It's been good.
Yep.
Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. Batteries died. It's hard to be the tech person and the person on the screen. We're going to fix that, hopefully for the next time.
Yeah, we'll get the support team in here. We're still figuring that out. Yeah. No, we're moving in a place where maybe we don't have to fly so much. So, yeah. All right, love you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.